The idea for Nancy Ann as a YouTube video was actually a very interesting sort of joint collaborative effort. I was working in my studio, in my acting studio with Wynn Handman, and he had directed a play version of a bunch of Jules Feiffer cartoons, comic strips from like the 70s into a play called Hold Me, and I was familiar with this monologue from that play. And so I was working outside of that as something to film so that I would have some material for film and TV. And I was working with another director friend of mine, Ted Slubersky. And as we were looking at the text, he commented that the text was pretty archaic. I mean, not even 70s, like more like 1950s in terms of the jargon and terminology used. And so he had this thought of like, what if this is like almost like a PSA, like, you know, those sort of feminist PSAs that you have like at the beginning of like Mona Lisa Smile. And that made me click right away. I had done a piece where I was Sylvia Plath with the mid-Atlantic accent and all of that stuff, and so I was like, oh, I know exactly what to do. This is like that sort of mid-Atlantic 1950s, you know, very put together housewife sort of character, and what if she's sort of a Dear Abby? And so I did the piece from that perspective, and it really reframed the whole thing, and it really, like, that imagery right away gave me the character. And I ended up naming her Nancy Ann because my paternal grandmother's name is Nancy and my maternal grandmother's name is Annalise Ann. So I put the two together and it sounded extremely 1950s to me. And made the video and sent it to a few friends, and my friend Mikey, who was working at the time for BuzzFeed, wrote me back and was like, you have to do like 10 of these. And I thought, well, there's only the one monologue, which means I need to write them. So then I started to research as much dating advice as I could find from the 1950s, even the 1920s, you know, just anything that I could find that was dated, we would say. And it was hilarious. I mean, everything under the sun, but there were these kernels of patriarchal truth that have not changed about it, and so I thought that was really something that would be fun to play with. So it's tongue-in-cheek advice and it's satirical in nature, but I think part of what's amusing about it is like, it's funny because it's true.
Just between us girls, I like dating around.
I'm not so sure I want to get pinned to just one fella. So whenever I'm with a man who seems intent on monopolizing my attentions, I make it seem like settling down is all I want in the world. Men hate to feel pressured into anything. They think everything should be their idea. So I'll talk non-stop about how many children I want.
So the premise of the vignettes that I'm making for the Women's Cycle is essentially taking that kernel of truth that still exists in that dating advice and showing how all of this advice that we think is, you know, so dated is really not too, I mean, we're still operating in a system that actually still feeds into a lot of these same stereotypes and desires, one could say. And so I think the working title is Girl Talk, and it's playing with the idea of like all the different ways that women are told how to be women, whether by men or by each other, or by society, by advertising, etc. I decided to join the Women's Cycle because my friend Ebony invited me to it, and it actually was an answer to prayer kind of a thing. I'm a person of faith, and I was walking down the street one day, and I was thinking about the fact that I just was really, really busy running around doing a bunch of things, and I would love to be marketing myself well, finding an agent or finding projects to get involved in, but I just didn't really have time, and so I was like, you really need to bring something to me. And literally 2 days later, I got an email from Ebony that she was wanting to meet with me, and she'd watched the Nancy Ann videos and had some thoughts on a project, and I was like, wow, that was quick. Thanks. So we met up and discussed, and I was really, you know, excited that somebody had enjoyed my work, of course, and then it became a question of how to turn that into a fuller length production, not a 2-act play necessarily, but a 1-act play. You know, and I didn't really see Nancy Ann as a one-woman show because of the type of advice she gives. It's almost more like like a Dear Abby column where she answers a question. So I didn't feel like she could talk nonstop necessarily for an hour, but I thought that she could be sort of the commercial interlude between scenes in a contemporary setting. I'm excited about developing more work for women and with women. I hope that my show inspires and encourages other women to create their own work. I think we're so lucky to be born in such a time as this, because it is the first time in film history that we have at our fingertips the ability to produce work and then edit it ourselves and get it seen without a middleman. Now, there's a lot in the market, sure, but if you have a voice, you can at least create it, and it's not, you know, something that no one will have ever seen made. And if you have a frustration that you're not getting to do the things that you'd like to be doing, you can put your money where your mouth is and make those things happen.